Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. I'm your host Stu, without Brad again this week. As we heard last week, they are still in hospital. All of our love goes to Brad. Most importantly though, they and I will be able to absolutely kick ass in every three-legged race from now on. So, there's a positive to everything. So luckily, Brad and I were able to catch up for a quick conflab and we discussed one of the games he's been playing. And without further ado, here we go. Okay, so what have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing plenty actually, but one I'm going to talk about today is Rise of the Golden Idol, which is the sequel to Case of the Golden Idol, which was an absolutely outstanding, I wouldn't even say it was a point and click, but detective game with like some fascinating, like everything was broken down into like mini stories and everything. It was just a fantastic detective game where you had to actually take note of what was written down, take note of your scenery, and piece together clues and pop them into like a solving book kind of thing. It was outstanding. Well, the sequel came out, I want to say, a week ago. As we're talking. It takes everything that's great about the Case of the Golden Idol, ramps it up. It is just every time I think I found my game of the year, another game pops up and just goes, hi, look at me, I'm really good.
Wow.
Yeah, it's more the same. It kind of follows on from the first game, but you don't need to have played the first game to get anything out of this. So, like, your setup is you'll get this case that's going on, and basically you have to you get little prompts on the screen that you can click on, and it'll give you like details of names and who's doing what and what this actual scene's about and stuff like that. And then for everything you click, it will just give you a ton of words. So you might be like two detectives talking, and one might refer to the other one as Roy, and the other one might refer to someone else down the line, like a Mrs. whatever or something like that. And then you get keywords come up. And then basically what you have to do is you'll get a bit where it says, right, who is everybody? And you have to get all their names in place. And then you'll get what's like all the vehicles that have been used, put all those in place. And then sort of like you get like what are the events? And you have to put like, so-and-so did this to hide this kind of thing. And it's just really, really smart and clever in what it does. Like, you can get hints, but it doesn't just go, here's a hint. It basically goes, right, tell you what, like, this is what I really like. You go and say, like, give me some hints, and it goes, right, breathe. And it literally makes you do breathing exercises. Like, it doesn't register you're doing them, but it goes, right, breathe in, breathe out. And then it asks if you really do want the hints, or whether you want to kind of go back and do it yourself. And you kind of, most of the time, you go, yeah, do you know what? I can't. Let's go and have another look. And whenever you solve a case, or you solve, like, you clear one of the things, one of the events, you feel so damn smart. It is so good. It is one of the best detective games I've ever played. And yes, I said, it's like, I don't know how we do Game of the Year this year. Again, you look at the AAA space, you might pick out one or two games, but the indie space, Jesus Christ, it's just banger after banger after banger. And this is no exception, just absolutely outstanding.
Wow. Yeah, no, there's been absolute corkers this year. It really has been so tough to choose. Yeah, I just keep adding new ones every week and going, oh God, well, it's going to be like a top 100 of the year at this rate. It's just, bananas.
I don't think, if you do things properly, I don't think you can do traditional Game of the Year anymore in the indie scene, because there's just so many. And you just go, well, what can I pick out? I mean, I was 100 hours into Satisfactory, and it is bloody amazing. I went, like, that's clearly my Game of the Year. But Balatro at one point was clearly my Game of the Year. And now Rise of the Golden Idol is clearly my Game of the Year. And I dare say, if I look back through the list, there's a few others where I've said it. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how like we pull these ones out of our house on the last few weeks of the year, but yeah, absolutely outstanding. And I've that's one I can talk about. I've got a couple that are still embargoed for a couple of weeks that are just as good. But it's just,
Blimey.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just so many good games, and even the ones where you go, I think they've missed it a bit there. They've got things like Planet Coaster. I really enjoy it. It's buggy as hell, but it's still brilliant. And it's just like, I mean, I can't make that game of the year because it is quite buggy still, but it's still so much fun to play. I've just cracked like 11 and a half hours sat in hospital bed on the thing, so it's not bad. But again, like Rise of the Golden Idol, I'm hours into that, I've still not finished it because like some of the puzzles, like some of the cases will take you forever to do. Oh, it's just outstanding.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Brilliant. So, yeah, I hope it gets like recognition in some awards, because I know that sometimes, stuff that comes out late in the year, they've already started doing the considerations for Game of the Year, and things that are released late can be a little bit overlooked. So, yeah, fingers crossed it still gets some recognition.
Yeah. Or they'll just give it to some bang average AAA game.
Ugh, well, that always happens. It's a load of garbage. Most of the AAA games this year have been total garbage, or at very best, they've been like middle of the road. I mean, what stood out in the AAA space? I don't think anything has it? Maybe, well, I don't. Unless you class Astrobot as AAA, but I wouldn't class Astrobot as AAA.
No, I wouldn't. It's there with like the like the smaller. Like I'd say that it was like a Ratchet and Clank, where I don't think like originally they were AAA. Like I know they've made the last one like a massive title and everything, but I think back when those first came out, those mascot platformers and stuff, they weren't AAA. They were just mascot platformers to fill libraries essentially, and that's what Astrobot is in the best way. Best way.
I don't think that it's got the kind of marketing or the money behind it to be classed as a AAA. Just don't think it has. No.
Yeah, it's the best thing Sony have done in quite a few years.
God, yeah, without a doubt. Certainly the most fun.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me. I've got plenty others I could talk about soon. So yeah, you can't get rid of me quite yet.
Damn it! I've been trying.
I know.
I got that paper cut on your leg so that I could, subtly take you out, but it hasn't worked, does it?
No, I'm like the T1000. I want to say.
Yeah, the liquid metal one.
Yes, not the T800. He sucked. He was a bit shit, really, because it just crush him.
Yeah, well, if you were the T1000, you could just have another leg, and you could make other appendages as well and change their sizes and things. So
the best Terminator was the one played by that Christina Loken. Is her name? What's her name? I can't remember. Obviously, Terminator.
Oh yeah, 3. Terminator 3. Cool.
Yes, the best Terminator.
No, definitely
can't do that. Can't do it. Sorry.
Can't, can you? No. That was certainly a film. I saw that at the cinema. Bloody hell.
Do you know what? I enjoyed it. It was trash, but I kind of enjoyed it. I've got to admit, right, I think this is right. So very, very quickly, this was only meant to be me talking about a game, but there you go. Stu's editing magic. Right, but very, very quickly, right, I think because of my ADHD and autism, right, I've worked out that if things do stuff on a screen and it's exciting, or right, the story could be shit, whatever, I kind of will still enjoy it. It's like I watch what people consider really bad films. I'm like, yeah, it was all right. I'm all right. I was entertained.
Yeah.
I don't care. Things went bang. There we go. I'm a simple person. I love art house films at the same time.
Yeah, you should definitely go and see Gladiator 2 if you've got low standards then.
Is it not?
It's not great. It is not great.
I mean, it's when you've got like something called Gladiator 2, especially with how great the first film was. It reminds me of the unofficial sequel to The Exorcist with Leslie Nielsen called Repossessed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I feel Gladiator 2 should have been, like a proper spoof of the theme, but like an unofficial sequel. Because I know, like, Repossessed, it had Linda Blair in it and everything, didn't it? It had all the returning cast and Leslie Nielsen. It was so weird that it was actually a sequel of some kind.
That was bizarre. It really was. I only saw that once when it came out, and that's it.
I loved it.
Yeah,
I could watch Leslie Nielsen all day. Well, I couldn't anymore. He's dead, but...
Well, yeah, precisely. I mean, you could sit and watch his grave, but I don't think much would happen.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I even loved, what was it, Accidental Spy or something? Was one of these or something? I don't know, but some of these shittier ones, like where he just like, oh, let's make a spoof and put Leslie Nielsen in it, even if it's bad. I enjoyed it. There's something wrong with me, Stu.
Yeah, there clearly is. Yeah. I mean, if you like Dracula Dead and loving it, then there's definitely something wrong with you. So. Yeah.
Oh dear! Yeah, I think that's it for me, Stu. I will let you do your editing magic because I don't know where I'm going with it.
Don't blame you.
I'm lonely. Honestly, I'm like a lonely old person. Talk to me. I don't want home phone. I don't want Tesco home phone, but I'll talk to you.
Well, I'm not going to let you, so I'm going to cut you off. So,
been a pleasure.
It was good catching up, and we shall see you next time. Okay, now that part's over with Brad. Time to my selection of games. And I got a couple this week. The first one is a VR game called Vendetta Forever. Now, this is a kind of, well, let's call it a spiritual sequel to Super Hot. But you could also kind of call it a spiritual rip-off in a way. It's not an exact sequel. It's not by the same team. And it's not exactly the same type of game. But it's close enough to be, in the same ballpark or in the same shooting people in the face park. And I'm sure there are some of those in America. Sorry, throwing the Yanks under the bus again. Do apologise. Apologise to our US viewers, listeners, whatever. Yeah, so Vendetta Forever. Essentially, what you do is, much like Super Hot, you play it in the first-person perspective, you have a gun, and you have to kill enemies, and without killing them, you can't progress through the level. Physically, you can't traverse through the level without killing them. Now, what happens in this one that makes it a little bit different is that instead of you only having action when you're moving, you only have action when you're still. And you have to progress through the level physically, traverse through it, by collecting the weapon of the character that you've just killed. These faceless blank characters like you have in Super Hot. And yeah, that's what you do. So you'll start off static, you can't move, you kill somebody, their gun goes flying up into the air in slow-mo, you press your grip button on your VR control and you teleport and grab that weapon. And you basically have to repeat all the way through the level. Now, there are some wrinkles to this, so sometimes you only get one-shot weapons. Sometimes you have to shoot triggers to get you through sections, but you still have to collect weapons to move, so you've got to balance which weapon you're grabbing. Sometimes you have people you have to protect, people who are kidnapped, hostages, and you have to rescue them, and so on. There are little bits and tweaks to it, that are pretty intriguing. And it's all about how they're laid out. All these enemies are laid out in position all around the level. And they're cleverly hidden from view a lot of the time. So you'll shoot somebody who's at an intersection and you'll warp to their weapon. And then you'll be like, okay, do I look left or right? Where's the fire going to come from? And you find out either by dying and having to restart the level or by guessing correctly and taking the guy out. It's very John Wick, it's designed to be blam, move on, has that vibe to it. Doesn't look like John Wick because it looks like Super Hot. I lost count already. I should have had a little clicker for every time I mentioned Super Hot. So, is it any good? Well, I'd say that the core fundamentals are good. It's a good idea. you have a rewind button to go back to the last spot you were standing in, which can be really helpful. That said, I don't know. I don't know if it's that thrilling or fulfilling, really. Mainly because of its limitations of its concept. So, because you've got to go where it tells you, and because you've got to be so accurate, and because you can't really guess where enemies are going to be, there is a fair bit of repetition. There's not much, unless I'm just being completely dumb and rubbish, which is extremely possible on both counts. It's very difficult to work out what to do, and therefore you need to replay the level. And I suppose there's a longevity thing in that, but it's also a bit tedious when you get like halfway through and you realise that you can't progress because, I don't know, you've killed somebody and you can't get their gun, or you've killed the wrong one, they're a bit too far away, or you get killed because you've not spotted a guy in time, and you've got to try and memorise where they are, and then you'll replay it and you'll get past that section, then you'll hit the same section again. And that's okay in a kind of, it's all right if there are ways and means around that, but there aren't really any ways and means around that because you don't have free travel. So that's, a little bit of a holdback. If you go into it thinking, right, okay, this is going to be something I need to play over and over again to get good at, that's fine. You'll enjoy it from that perspective. I find it a little bit restrictive. It's okay, but it's a little bit restrictive. Secondly, it's a bit buggy, I find. Sometimes I'll try shooting and it won't recognise I've shot. And considering you sometimes have half a second before you get killed, if you pull the trigger and it doesn't fire, you're dead. So that can be a bit annoying. Sometimes a character that you're meant to kill to start a level off, you can't kill. Like, your gun just doesn't recognise them, doesn't recognise you pointing at the enemy. It's uncommon, but it has happened on a few levels for me. And yeah, sometimes guns not appearing or appearing in the wrong place or whatever, or falling down and not being recognised, so you can't teleport to them, so you've got to restart the level. Again, all three of those bugs, they haven't occurred that often each, but cumulatively, because there are three different types of them, they happen enough for it to be annoying. So you combine that with, the kind of restrictiveness of the levels, it holds it back a little bit. But when it's all going on, all guns blazing, it works well. It's fun when you get into that pattern, into that flow, and there are some levels that are really well designed that take great advantage of it, make it completely enjoyable. There are quite a few that are a bit duff, to be honest. They're just not very well designed levels. It's really mix and match. I don't know whether the developers kind of had several people on the team and some did ones and some did other ones, and therefore the quality is variable. But yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, I would say. If you like Super Heart and you want to try something that's like that but a bit different, yeah, give it a try. It's not massively expensive on Quest. It's got a demo. I'd recommend trying the demo out, see what you think of it. It's not a hearty recommendation from me, but it's kind of a soft recommendation if you're into that kind of thing and you fancy something new. I wasn't sure what to cover next. I've got a few things bubbling under, a few things on the go. None of them really kind of grabbing me massively, although they're okay. But the one I'll talk about is Gestalt, Steam and Cinder, which I talked about quite a while ago when I played the demo. I think it was earlier this year. It came out about a month ago, I think. Managed to get a cheap key for it, and it's a Metroidvania style platformer. It's leaning a little bit more towards the platformy side than it is the repeat exploration side at the moment, at least. And yeah, you could almost just call it a platform game. There's the sort of classic, sort of now classic thing of, having a big inventory, having equipment, that kind of soft, light RPG element to it. And, powering up and developing new moves and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, go back to my original kind of review if you want to hear about the basics for it. But yeah, in terms of the full game, it's good. It's good enough. It's solid. It looks really nice. Like the handheld artwork, pixel art, is really good. It animates really well. It's got plenty of character. The designs of the enemies in particular are really impressive. They managed to get a fairly unique niche carved out, which is tough in this genre because it's so old and there's so many examples. What they've gone with is it's steampunk aesthetic, and I'm not really a fan of steampunk. It doesn't really float my boat, but I totally see the value in the whole aesthetic they've used here, because yeah, it does kind of mark it out quite well. It's certainly different from your general Castlevanias and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm glad they went with it in a way, even though So yeah, no complaints on that score. Very easy on the eye. Your standard combat's good. It's got this thing, again, I've probably covered this in the original coverage of the demo, that you have a gun that's on a cooldown, so there's a little bit of Soulsborne-y elements in it because you've also got a stamina bar. So you've got cooldowns and stamina bars, which are very kind of, Souls-like from what I've played of them. But you can develop the gun so that it's got different abilities, and you can also use there are things connected to it. I won't go into any spoilers, but there are things connected to that are quite clever as well. And so, yeah, quite a neat structure in terms of how that's put together. Thing is, on a very personal level, I'm getting very kind of bored of that now, and it's nothing to do with this individual game. It's a genre thing, and the reason being that if you play a game like, I know it's going back a very long way, but if you play Strider, you get power-ups very quickly, and then you power up those power-ups very quickly. Same with like R-Type, same with Shinobi, same with any classic arcade game. And because it's an arcade game, that's expected. You want your basic weapon to be really good. You want to be a bit of a badass from the start, but then face increasingly difficult enemies needing the power-ups, or at least the power-ups help rather than being essential. And yeah, you want that kind of power fantasy. And the structure of that is, when you start the game and you're rubbish at it, you're probably going to put like 5 hours in it before you get anywhere near good and complete it, if you're not spamming it with credits. If once you're really good at it, you probably crack through it in 15 minutes. Have a look at a speedrun for these games. 15 minutes. It's bizarre. Look at my speedrun on Mental Health Gaming YouTube of Shinobi, 1 credit clearance. Took me 15 minutes. But there's far more than that going into the time of it. So what's my point? Well, just that Metroidvanias, unless they're beautifully balanced and perfectly poised and have a ton of content and they're very different and all of the unique items in it are fantastical and exciting, nuanced, different, and you get them constantly so that you've got that dopamine hit of progression like you do with Symphony of the Night, which takes you through wolf form, mist form, swords, flails, poles, magic, accessories, helper characters. This vast array of stuff. If you haven't got that vast array of stuff to be playing around with, why isn't the game much, much shorter? So I've played Gestalt for, probably 2.5 hours on this run and an hour and a half on the demo. So cumulative, at least sort of 4 hours. And in that time, the character has not progressed very massively. I don't feel like I'm dealing massive numbers of damage. The combat hasn't changed significantly, and I haven't seen a great deal of difference in the environments. So, again, that's not a massive complaint about this individual game, but it's endemic now to this, this genre, because Symphony of the Night, that was a AAA game, and the ones that came out on the Game Boy Advance and the 3DS weren't AAA, but they were, single A. They had tons of content. They were a little bit of a rip-off of what had come before, but they still had tons and tons of content in them. And I'm not just talking about vast maps. I'm talking about what happens whilst you're playing, during play, to keep you engaged. And I think just very many of these games could be turned on their head and made into a standard platformer that just lasts a few hours, still has your very light RPG elements, but you level up much, much quicker, and you're clear to the audience that no, you're not expecting a 20, 30, 40 hour experience. You're going to be having a 5-hour experience, but it's going to be packed with action. Now, that's my personal perspective, and I totally understand if others don't have it. So, that said, from me, if you like these kind of modern Metroidvanias, and when I say modern, I mean within the last year, because there's so many of them, and I've played so many of them. If you like them and you want a new one that's polished, go for it. If you want something that's really different, or perhaps a little bit spikier and taking you off the beaten path, it's probably one to avoid. If you want a classic platformer, you probably want to look around for something, a little bit neater and shorter than this as well. So it's in a good space, but it's not an absolutely must-have, desperate kind of a space, if you get what I'm talking about. So a bit of a long ramble on that, but there you go. Okay, so that's it for this episode. I hope you don't mind the patchwork nature. As I say, we're desperately trying to make sure we get content out for you guys, and so that you can still hear our thoughts and opinions if they're not too upsetting or rubbish, and hopefully mine weren't. I hope there's some value to them. But in the meantime, until next time, stay safe and stay sane.